Imagine living your whole life like a puppet on invisible strings. Women pull one thread, society pulls another, your own lust pulls a third, and you don't even realize that every smile you force, every compromise you make, every hidden resentment you swallow is because you never learned how to protect your own energy. The day a man commits to semen retention is the day the strings begin to snap one by one. Suddenly, the same people who used to bend him to their will find themselves staring at someone they can no longer control. He is no longer operating from hunger. He is no longer begging for scraps of validation. He's no longer willing to dance like a fool for a touch, a glance, or an approval he doesn't even respect. When you cut off the world's control over your body, they lose their control over your mind. When you lose your lust-driven weakness, they lose their power to manipulate you. But before we dive deeper into how this shift unfolds, brother, I want you to join our Telegram channel right now. The link is in the description. That is where we share raw truths, unfiltered strategies, and guidance that YouTube itself cannot handle. You need that if you are truly serious about reclaiming your throne. Make no mistake, semen retention is not just about holding seed. It is about holding your will against everything and everyone who profits from your weakness. When you start walking this path, you notice the little manipulations people used to throw at you suddenly stop working. The guilt tripping no longer tugs at your heart. That fake flattery no longer clouds your judgment. That subtle shaming no longer forces you to shrink. You build a kind of inner wall that doesn't allow tricks and games to get past your awareness. It shocks people because they expect you to bend like you used to. Instead, they run into a man who looks them in the eye and sees right through the act. That is when they realize they can't toy with you anymore, because your clarity has become a weapon sharper than anything they can use against you. This clarity grows from the hunger you deny. Every time you reject the urge to spill your energy, you are rejecting the manipulation of the world itself. You are telling your lower nature it no longer commands you. You are telling temptation that it no longer owns you. You are telling manipulators that your worth is not for sale, not for guilt, and not for exploitation. This is why men who retain suddenly stop being easy prey. They stop falling for women who want attention without giving love. They stop obeying bosses who want submission without respect. They stop tolerating friends who want favors without loyalty. They stop bowing to family members who want control without responsibility. Semen retention forces you to deal with your own emptiness instead of chasing distractions. Once you have faced that emptiness, no one can use it against you again. Manipulation dies the moment self-mastery is born. When you walk with that energy, people sense something uncomfortable about you. You are no longer the man who nods to avoid conflict. You are no longer the man who laughs at jokes that humiliate him. You are no longer the man who says yes, while his soul screams no. You become the man who can sit in silence and watch others squirm. You become the man who can refuse without explaining. You become the man who can lose approval without losing peace. You become the man who can say no without guilt. You no longer fear being alone. You no longer fear being disliked. You no longer fear losing something that was never worth keeping. That terrifies manipulators because their entire game depends on you being afraid. Semen retention cuts the wires to those fears. Suddenly, you are immune to their tactics. When a woman tests you with silence, you don't crumble. When a boss pressures you with urgency, you don't fold. When a peer provokes you with shame, you don't react. When society tempts you with endless indulgence, you don't take the bait. You have seen through the illusion. This is why retention is dangerous, not just to you, but to the entire system that feeds on your weakness. A man who cannot be manipulated is a man who cannot be controlled. A man who cannot be controlled is a man who threatens the entire order that thrives on keeping men distracted, drained, and desperate. This is why when you start retaining, people will accuse you of being cold, arrogant, or selfish. The truth is, you are not cold, you are focused. You are not arrogant, you are sovereign. You are not selfish, you are simply no longer available for exploitation. Manipulators will call your strength a flaw. Deep down they fear it because they know the moment they cannot toy with you, they have no place in your life. Here is what is even more profound. Once you stop being manipulated, you also stop manipulating others. Retention cleanses you of that desperate need to control people for validation. Instead, you begin to operate from pure presence. When you walk into a room with that presence, People sense it instantly. Some will respect it, others will resist it, but no one will be able to ignore it. A man in retention carries a weight that bends reality around him. Manipulators who used to run the game are suddenly thrown off balance. Their usual tricks don't land. Their usual hooks don't sink. Their usual buttons don't work. Find themselves confused because you have stepped outside the system of control. When you are outside it, you can see it clearly. Like a man who finally realizes the magician's trick and can no longer be fooled by sleight of hand. This is where your real journey begins. The world is full of manipulators. Women, bosses, media, politics, friends, even your own past self. Semen retention is the shield that keeps you from bowing to any of them. So brother, if you are serious about this path, don't just hold your seed. Hold your soul. Hold your boundaries. Hold your truth. And remember this. Every contribution you make through the thanks button below is vital. It helps us continue producing this kind of content that men like you desperately need. Without your support, the voices that speak truth get drowned out. So if this resonated, if this shook you, if this reminded you of the man you were meant to be, then stand with us. Contribute. Keep walking this path of power. The world can no longer manipulate the man who has chosen mastery over his desires. Once you reach that point, brother, you are free in a way most men will never even understand.